because Mobil One's a pretty good synthetic oil. And you can get a package deal, which is a 5-quart plus an oil filter at your local auto parts store. Usually they have a pretty good deal. Oh, and just one more thing. The 3.6 liter takes 6.9 quarts. So you're going to need one of these and then 2 of the 1-quart bottles, or you just pick up 2 of the 5-quart bottles and you use what you need. Typically I get 2 of the 5-quart bottles because it's a cheaper deal. Alright guys, so what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the oil from the crankcase, and I'm going to use a light here so I can show you exactly where everything is underneath the car. On this particular model, the 3.6 liter, the oil filter is underneath the engine. On the 2.5 liter, the oil filter is actually in this area right in here. So it's obvious to see and easier to remove, but on the 3.6 liter, it's down underneath, and I'll show you where that is in a moment. So you'll see the oil filter right over here. Let's see if I can put this down here. So oil filter is right here, and that's where you're going to have to remove it. It's a little tight in terms of access, but it's not too bad. And then your oil plug is right there, and that's typically, on most cars, that's typically a 17 millimeter, and that's the case in here. So we're going to go ahead and remove that so that we can go ahead and remove the oil from the crankcase. And don't forget to actually get a pan and the pig pads underneath that, so that when you're removing the oil, it's got some place to go. Peace. You'll see that the this bolt is actually angled this way, so that's the direction the oil is going to go. So you want to be a little bit careful. Make sure that the oil catch pan is directly underneath there, and you'll see it when I remove the plug. So no matter how clean you try to be, it's always going to spill everywhere. The other thing you want to do too is you want to remove the cap on the top side of the engine, the oil filler cap, so that air can get in from the top side of the engine. And you'll see as I remove that, there's going to be a little bit more oil that comes out of the bottom. So it's just like a straw. When you hold a straw in a cup and then you put your thumb at the top of the straw, you pull it out, the liquid is going to stay in that straw. So once you remove the top, your thumb from the top, oil is going to exhaust out, and you'll see that. All right, that's emptying out. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to the oil filter and try to remove that. That's over here. You can see that in the camera. If not, I'll move the camera here. So right here is the oil filter. This is a little bit of a tough filter to remove because of access where it's at. Typically I try to use a tool like this that you can get at your auto parts store. If not, we're going to have to get a little bit more aggressive and maybe use like a crescent wrench to kind of grab onto it and remove. So let's try this first. There we go. It wasn't too bad. It was actually kind of on the looser end. Again, just try to keep everything underneath it so that when the oil does come out of it, actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to close this up a little bit so we can stop that oil from coming out for a moment. I think most of it's out anyway. We're gonna remove. No matter what you do, you're always going to have oil on your floor. What we're going to do is we're going to remove this oil filter first. There we go. is going to come out of the oil filter, so that's why you need the pan underneath it. Let that empty out a little bit, and when you see nothing coming out, then you can remove it the rest of the way. So most of the oil is out. And what we're going to do is remove the oil filter, empty the rest of it into here, and you can actually leave it here because we're not going to need that anymore. Let the rest of the oil empty out. You need plenty of these rags. Once this does stop, what we want to do is we want to clean off the surface of the mating surface of the oil filter, so that when the new oil filter actually butts up to it, it's got a nice flat surface and clean surface to adhere to. All right, pretty close. And basically it's just a machine finish edge where the rubber gasket of the oil filter, you'll see it here. I'll show that to you. So there's a rubber gasket that goes around the entire surface or diameter of the oil filter, and that's what butts up to the polished aluminum housing that's here. So there's always going to be a little bit of oil left over, a little residual, but we'll get the most of it out. Okay, we'll let that go, and now we'll prep up the new oil filter. Okay, so we have our new oil filter. This is the K&N. It's the 1004 HP-1004 for this 3.6 liter. And all you got to do is basically thread it back on. Just be careful not to cross thread. Righty-tighty, just like everything else. Well, actually, I forgot to do something. It's pretty important. So what you want to do is you want to take a little oil and you want to wet the surface of the mating surface of the rubber gasket so it kind of glides on. Doesn't have to be crazy wet. Just enough oil to basically coat the surface. And then you're going to be putting that on onto the surface, onto the housing. Again, righty-tighty. Once it hits, what you're going to do, see it hits right here. So you want to take that K&N or whatever you have as a datum point, and then you want to like turn it a quarter turn, or a little bit more than a quarter turn. That's quarter turn. We're going to go a little more because we want this to be snug. It's probably more like half turn. And then you're good. And then the heat of the engine and this housing and the oil is going to allow everything to swell up and keep that snug and tight. So we're good with that part of it. Now let's go back to this, which is the crankcase oil. Let's open that up a little bit, make sure we got everything out of it. You need your wrench. See a little bit more. And you're never going to get 100% of the oil out of the engine. It's just not possible. But you want to do your best to try to remove as much as you can. There is a crush washer. You can see here. On here, I did not purchase a new crush washer this time around. Usually I alternate how often I replace the crush washer. They're pretty inexpensive, but I just happened to forget this time. So I'm going to monitor that and make sure that there's no leaking. Typically there's not. Surface is pretty smooth, it's clean, I don't see any deformities or anything like that, so we're just going to basically put that on and tighten it up. That crush washer is really, it's a good idea to get a new one, and then when you tighten it up, it crushes and it kind of like conforms to the surface, and it allows for a nice tight fit. I usually make this a little bit more hand tight That's more than enough for an oil filler cap. You don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to have to go nuts on it. And that's it for the underside of the engine. So I'll pause this and then we'll go to the top side of the engine. I apologize, I had a smudge on my lens, so hopefully you were able to see a majority of that. But we're going to go ahead and start installing the oil on the car. Like I said, I have the 5W30 for this car. That's what's recommended for the 3.6 liter. So let's go ahead and install that. So what you're going to need is your 5-quart container, and you're going to need a funnel. Because on this car, it is very difficult to get this oil into the car because of where the filler cap is. Because the filler cap is all the way down here. Let me see if I can get that. Right there. So that's where the filler cap is, and we're going to need a funnel for sure to add the first 5 quarts. And yes, it is pouring outside. Oh my gosh. Pouring outside in New Jersey. Hopefully there aren't too many car shows that are being canceled right now. But tomorrow is the Memorial Day car show at M&M Mars in Hackstown, New Jersey. Hopefully we'll get some time to get out there and check that out. Take your time with putting the oil in here, and because oil is about $10 a gallon, or a quart I should say, we want to make sure that we get every bit of it, every ounce into this engine. So we're just going to let this sit here for a little bit and allow for most of the oil to drain out. It'll take a couple minutes, and that gives me a little time to kind of empty out the old oil into some containers for recycling. So you'll see that I have the pig pad underneath this also, so if there's any spillage, this will catch it. And you can see here how the oil gets absorbed into the pig pad. This is a very inexpensive thing to get. You can get it on Amazon. I'll put the link down below, but they're very helpful. I like them a lot. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what I do on a 5-quart to show you how I kind of measure this out. It's 6.9 quarts. I emptied out 5 quarts already, and you'll see on this bottle 5 quarts is up here, 4 quarts, 3 quarts, 2 quarts, and so on. So since we need 6.9 quarts, I'm going to be emptying out to about here, right? So that's 1, 2 quarts. So just before the 2 quarts, that'll be 6.9, and then I can measure and kind of gauge based on the dipstick. So right in there, and we're just going to clean this funnel up and put the cap back on, and we're good to go. So basically what we're going to do is after we do that, we're going to like level off the car, run it for a little bit, check the dipstick, and I'll show you that in a little bit, where it needs to be in terms of the dipstick and how much fluid needs to be in the engine, and then that's basically it, and then you're ready to rock and roll. Alright, the car is warming up, and we're going to let it warm up for a good, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then we're going to turn it off, let the oil settle inside the engine, and we'll check the dipstick and find out where we're at. In the meanwhile, you could fill out one of these, just basically a reminder. You could put down the grade of oil that you use if you can't remember, if it's not noted anywhere, and the mileage at which you want to change the oil. So that's what I would do. And then the service due date, if you want to put today's date or the due date, it depends on the mileage in our case, because we drive a lot of miles, so we typically put the mileage in here. And Mobil one, because it is synthetic, you typically can go up to 10,000 miles guaranteed, you know, and that's a safe bet, and it's a lot more inexpensive rather than changing the oil every 3,000 miles like we used to do when we were younger. So 10,000 miles for Mobil one synthetic is just fine. All right, so let's check the oil, see where we're at. First thing you want to do is, because the engine's been running, you want to kind of clean off the dipstick. And if you look at the dipstick real close, you'll see two holes. And those two holes represent low and full. Let's see if you can see that real quick. I hope you can see that. Anyway, so there's two holes there. The upper hole is full, lower hole is low. And typically it's 1 quart from the low to the full indicators right there. You're 1 quart off. So during your intermittent checks, you can double check and make sure to see whether or not you're low or not. And you know exactly how much to fill. So let me try this one more time. And I think we're a little on the low end. We were conservative, so we're kind of a third of the way up. So we're definitely going to have to add a little bit more oil. I would say probably a half a quart. All right, so we're going to check this one more time. I added a little bit